Spirit and be present with us in this place. For when you are with us, nothing else matters. We ask this in the name of your beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
These are kind of heavy, Nancy. But thank you for bringing them.
It's a little weird. Can I sit on this? Sure. It feels weird over here.
Okay. There's water behind you.
Okay.
Good. Oh, that's right. I'm starting.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, today's gospel story from Matthew presents another teaching moment with Jesus and his disciples. They just left Galilee, and behind them they left stories of miracles and people curious about who Jesus was. But he wasn't just healing, he was teaching too, and every once in a while Jesus would give his disciples a pop quiz, you know? You run into those stories like today, just to see how much they are taking in and how well they understand them.
Yeah. I can't imagine that he's too happy with their grades. Did they ever get anything right?
Well, not often, but anyway, so on they go following Jesus to Caesarea Philippi. And do you know what this city was? I have to believe that everything that Jesus said now in this gospel story was deliberate. Caesarea Philippi is this Roman city getting more pretentious by the moment on the Mediterranean. Herod was building it up, all kinds of building projects, turning it into a major trading hub, a shining star in the empire. A lot of construction going on to honor the emperor. All kinds of statues of worshiping gods, many different of the Roman gods, even dead ones. There was a main temple in Philippi that was believed to be the gates of hell, and that ties in as I listen to your gospel where later Jesus is going to tell Peter he's got the keys to hell.
I wonder if Jesus shows up. Those Romans, they're a bunch of heathens, emperor worshippers.
Okay, but let's veer back to the message, Nancy. Like I say, I don't think it was a coincidence that in this very pagan city, this very Roman city with all these shrines, Jesus shows up and starts asking these questions. But, he starts off with an easy one, right? Who do people say that the Son of Man is?
Yeah, they must have been relieved on that one. That's an easy question. All they have to do is answer what other people have said. They probably batted around the question. I can imagine they were, how they gathered together on Family Feud trying to find the question. That's probably what they were doing. And they said, some say it was John the Baptist who came back from the grave, or maybe Elijah, or Jeremiah, or some other prophet trying to get it right the second time. There were all kinds of half-baked stories going around about Jesus, but really not much risk in repeating what others have to say.
Until then, Jesus puts it straight to them. Like, I had to explain this to Nancy, like a fastball right down the middle. That means the batter's going to hit it. You don't want to put it down the corner. So it's like Jesus pitches a pitch that he kind of wants them to hit, but he hopes they know. Who do you say that I am?
You know what this reminds me of, don't you? Well, you probably don't remember. It was back in high school. You probably don't remember. How long ago?
I don't remember high school.
How long ago was that? The teacher would fire off a question. Well, you don't remember, but it was just an awful feeling because the room would just go quiet. If no one raised their hand, the teacher would just kind of randomly call somebody. And oh my gosh, I would have an instant panic attack. And I would sit there entirely motionless, hoping that somehow I was invisible. Or if not that, I'd look down at my desk, shuffle a few papers around, mess with my pen, take a few notes, pretend I was in total command of the subject and secretly praying that the teacher would call on someone a little more ignorant than I was.
Well, I know it's a shock, but you have to admit that Peter was the one that quickly and eloquently answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered, "Blessed are you, Simon."
Now, really, knowing what you know about Peter, do you really, really, really think it happened this way? You know, the Bible does not give us theatrical instructions and directions, no dramatic pauses, or we can't see their motions, we don't know what's going on. You know, I can imagine that the disciples were kind of clearing their throats, wondering what to say, maybe kind of playing with the dirt a little bit, mumbling, kind of under their breath, not sure the answer is. And I don't know the length of time between the event and now, but remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about Jesus in the boat.
Yes.
You know, Jesus was walking on water, the big storm, Jesus telling people, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Guess what the disciples said after Jesus calmed the storm?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
So, you know, they worshiped Jesus and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Sound familiar?
Okay.
Sort of like you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So, you know, they answered it a few weeks ago.
Well, I gotta say though that, you know, we have kind of a love relationship with Peter. He frequently puts his foot in his mouth, right? But there's just some sort of innocent ignorance about him that's compelling, even in all his impetuousness.
Yeah, think. You know, there was that little boat incident when he took his eyes off Jesus and started to drown. And next week, we'll hear Jesus rebuke him, saying, "Get behind me, Satan." Satan, remember that one? Not long ago after that, Jesus will suggest that they build 3 tabernacles, one for Elijah, one for Moses, one for him. And not long after that, he's going to take out his sword and, you know, slice off the ear of the priest's servant. And then, okay, the big one, you know, the big one, right? When he says, "Oh, Jesus, I'll always worship you, I'll always do that." And in the next breath, he's denying he ever knew the guy.
Yeah, that's the thing about Peter, you know? But I gotta say at the same time, I don't know if he's reckless, but he's brave too, Nancy. I mean, you gotta admit, he puts himself out there. He puts himself out there. He gets out of the boat. I mean, with all his faults, Jesus still likes the guy, and he loved Peter's answer. "You are the Messiah." It must have been the right answer, because Jesus doesn't wait for a second to pronounce Peter not only as blessed, but that articulation of faith, "You are the Messiah," would be the rock on which the whole church will be built. And he gives Peter the keys to heaven and hell, right? You know, Peter, you know, Nancy, Peter means, in Greek it's Petros or Petra, rock of the church,
Yes.
right? I like that.
Okay, I get it now. It's the rock thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You defend Peter because he's called the rock, and you collect rocks. You went to the North Shore last week, didn't you?
Yeah.
Brought home more rocks, didn't you?
2 bags.
I tell you, an intervention is necessary, guys. You know, whatever I say negative about Peter, I absolutely love his answer. "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." You know, something in those words strike me as just genuine. Beautiful, actually. You know, for me, it ranks right up there when Jesus says, "I am the resurrection and the life." You know, there's a lot of names for Jesus in the Bible. Do you know how many there are?
As a matter of fact, I do, Nancy. Didn't you have to take that quiz in seminary?
As a matter of fact, I didn't. Maybe I should have learned it in an internship.
Sure. Put it back on me, right?
Yep, faked my way through that one. You know, I heard that Satan showed up here a few weeks ago and talked about all of his names. Big ego the guy has. He uses all these names and he just kind of spouts them off all the time. You know, I thought maybe I should probably do the same for Jesus.
Go for it.
Okay. So here they go. All the names for Jesus. Adam, Advocate, Almighty, Alpha, Omega, Apostle of the Profession, Arm of the Lord, Author of our faith, Author of eternal salvation, Branch, Bread of life, Glory of the Lord, God bless, Great High Priest, Head of the Church, Heir of all things, Holy Child, the Just One, King of the Jews, King of the Kings, King of the Saints, Lawgiver, Lamb of God, the Life of the world, the Light of the world, Lord of our righteousness, Morning Star, Only Begotten Son. Well, you know, that's not all of them, but I don't think Jesus would care if, doesn't have
Those are great, and just leave a few for the crowd to look up.
Yeah. Doesn't have that big ego like Satan does.
Nancy, those are great, but you know, I can't help thinking this, that yes, knowing the names of Jesus is wonderful, it's edifying, it helps us think more about who he is, but what's even more important is knowing Jesus in a relationship. That's really what we're aiming for, what we're shooting for, you know? It's important for the disciples not just to say who Jesus is, but to say it because they know him in a relationship. And so today I was thinking of maybe having just quickly a few people in the congregation share that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Not your job, not mine. You know? And I do have a couple of people in mind. Payback time. Okay, I'm just kidding. I thought the only fair way was to do a round and drawing.
You know those tickets you got? I'm looking to see who's
So
sweating.
pull out your tickets, everybody.
Who's sweating?
So how many do you want to do? 2, 3, 4, 4?
Well, I was hoping to listen to the Twins Blue Jays later today, so how about 2?
2? Okay. Here's the first one.
60861. Nah, forget it. That's all right. Just wanted to. Can I see hands of who was a little nervous? Let's talk about knowing Jesus.
You know, to know Jesus, really know Jesus, we talk about relationship. Someone once asked me what it means to be in a relationship with God. I'm pretty sure I stumbled through my answer. I can see why we struggle understanding what it looks like. You know, Jesus comes into our lives and rearranges things, messes with our hearts. But who he is he? And why can't we be more articulate about who he is for us? What does it mean to have a relationship with God?
Well, we've obviously thought about this, and in some ways that relationship is like all of our relationships. I mean, there's essentials in every relationship. You talk, you go through stuff together, daily life. But it's also very different. Nancy, you and I were talking this week about our relationships with God being the most intimate relationship that we have. I mean, okay, Nancy, do you share everything with your spouse, with Jeff?
Okay, no. That would be a disaster. How about Jeff?
Well, you know, that's a good point because even with our loved ones and our friends, you know, sometimes it's just pragmatic. When is their time? When's their time to sit down and have a conversation and share? Or you don't want to burden them, you know? Or I sometimes put my feelings on hold to avoid them. Don't you? And sometimes the story or what you've been through is long and complicated, and you're just too weary, to try to be able to share it. But you know what? My relationship with Jesus is this. He knows. He knows that story. It's like that beautiful man. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sin and our griefs to bear. And I think it's just too much to ask of any human relationship to be fully known. But I love what St. Paul writes in Corinthians. He writes, "Now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in a mirror, but then we will see everything with perfect clarity. All that I know now is partial and incomplete, but then I will know everything completely." And here it is. "Just as God knows me completely." You see, God already knows you and me completely. And that's so inviting to come to him in relationship then.
So what do you tell others when, they ask about what they need to do to have a relationship with God?
Well, it's probably the same things I say every Sunday. But I was thinking, look in your ministry notes, because I said that in announcements. These are all the ways to be invited into relationship with the Lord and in community. That's a big part of our Romans reading today. And we are with God in community. And yet last week I talked about how this all happens in worship, especially how important worship is. We pray intimately for those who are struggling, those who are sick. Excuse me.
Can you just stop a minute? We say this all the time, and I am getting so tired of saying it. No one ever listens. You people don't listen, and I want to tell you this time, we mean it. Start reading your Bible. Go to church. Pray. Worship. Do all those things we always tell you to do, and we are not kidding. And stop watching Netflix. Stop playing with your cell phone. Stop being mean. Just stop it, okay? Do what your pastor tells you.
That's right. Are you finished?
Yeah.
Feel better?
Yes.
Deep breath.
Now, I've been thinking about what if I walked out of church today and someone asked me, what are you doing there? What is it that you actually believe? I think I'd freak out a little. Should I whip out my small catechism and recite the Apostles' Creed? I do have it memorized, but I think in that moment, if somebody just asked me, that I would totally forget it. But probably what I would say is, hold on just a minute, let me go get the pastor. Oh, you all know you would say the same thing.
No, that's not the right answer. You know what the right answer is, right? All we have to do is communicate with others about this person that loves us in a way no other person in this world can or ever has. And that's why I know I want to be here every Sunday too, just like you want to be with that person that loves you so much, that you love. And I love Jesus. So anyway, Jesus wants us to be able to answer, yes, in our own way, but also the way that Peter did. And to know Jesus the way Peter did in daily life, in relationship.
Yeah, as much as Peter is a bullheaded, big-hearted, bloviating blabbermouth.
Are we still talking about Peter, huh? Bloviating, I have to look that one up. Yeah, I know somebody like that. Oh, yeah, Peter.
As much as he is all those things, I have absolutely no doubt that he loves Jesus. He hangs in there. Every time he falls, he gets back up again, brushes himself on, and charges to help in God's mission in the world. He's not flawless, but he is willing. No way is Peter the perfect disciple, yet Jesus, in his fallible wisdom, decided to pick a fallible, hard-headed, never-say-die rock to build his church. You know, if he picked Peter, I think there's hope for all of us. Jesus understands when we find answers hard to come by, when we become tongue-tied and can't explain our faith, when we say things without thinking about them and regret them later. But understand this, everyone. Your answers to other people about Jesus matter. They absolutely matter. You may say something stupid, or you may surprise yourself and say something brilliant. Speak from the heart. Our faith in and our love for Jesus is hard to explain. The words don't come in easy, but I think we know with every inch of who we are and every inch of our being, we know the Messiah, the Son of the living God. God's perfect love, ours for the taking and ours for the giving. We love because he first loved us. Okay, people, go do love.
Amen.